The halls of Harrington Manor were always silent. Not the peaceful kind of silence, but the heavy, suffocating stillness of a place that once echoed with laughter, but was now filled only with memories. Ethan Harrington sat in his study, his gaze drifting toward the winter garden below. It used to be vibrant, blooming with the roses that Clara, his wife, had lovingly tended to. Now, the petals had withered, much like the emptiness in his heart that had lingered for the past 2 years. His 8-year-old daughter Lily was no longer the bright, cheerful girl she used to be. Since losing her mother, she had withdrawn into herself, barely speaking, barely smiling. She no longer ran through the halls, no longer told him about the little stories that once made her eyes light up. Ethan loved his daughter dearly, but he had no idea how to reach her. "Maybe Lily needs something to bring her back," suggested Mrs. Porter, the family's longtime housekeeper. "She used to love ballet, didn't she?" Ethan hesitated. He had tried so many things, nothing had worked. But when Mrs. Porter mentioned ballet, something flickered in his memory. Clara had always loved dancing with Lily. Perhaps, just perhaps, this could bring a part of that joy back. And so, with more doubt than certainty, he agreed. That was how Emma Carter arrived at Harrington Manor, a small experiment that neither of them knew would change their lives forever. What Ethan didn't realize was that the light she brought would change not just Lily, but himself as well. Emma Carter arrived at Harrington Manor on a quiet autumn afternoon. She wasn't sure what to expect, a little girl excited about ballet, or a child completely lost in sorrow. But the moment Mrs. Porter led her into the practice room, Emma knew. Lily was the latter. The girl sat on a wooden bench, her legs swinging slightly, her blue eyes fixed on the floor. No excitement, no anticipation, just emptiness. "Hello, Lily," Emma greeted gently, her tone warm but not overly cheerful. "I'm Emma, and I'll be teaching you ballet." Lily didn't respond. Emma didn't push. Instead, she quietly stepped into the center of the room, slipped off her shoes, and performed a single pirouette. A flawless, effortless spin. The soft fabric of her skirt flared around her, and for a brief moment, the sunlight streaming through the window made her look almost weightless. When she stopped, she noticed Lily watching her. The girl said nothing, but something in her gaze had changed. A flicker of curiosity, a spark of something small but real. "Would you like to try?" Emma asked, extending her hand. Lily stared at her for a long moment before shaking her head. But this time, it wasn't disinterest. It was hesitation. From the balcony above, Ethan Harrington had witnessed the entire exchange. He hadn't expected immediate results, but the fact that Lily had even looked at Emma, that was something. "I'm not sure she'll cooperate," Ethan admitted when he met Emma after the lesson. Emma simply smiled. "You don't have to be sure, you just have to be patient." For some reason, those words made Ethan feel at ease. Ballet lessons had become a routine at Harrington Manor. At first, Lily only watched, but as the days passed, she slowly stepped into the world Emma was creating for her. On the second lesson, she lifted her foot slightly, mimicking Emma's movement. By the fifth, she placed her small hand in Emma's to steady herself. By the third week, for the briefest moment, Lily laughed when she got a step wrong. Ethan Harrington was there to see it. He wasn't sure when he stopped watching from the balcony. Maybe it was the way Lily's laughter filled the air. Maybe it was the way Emma spoke to her, with warmth, with patience, with understanding. Whatever it was, he found himself drawn into the studio, not just to see Lily dance, but to see how Emma made her feel safe again. One late evening, as Ethan walked into the winter garden, he found Emma tending to the rose bushes. She carefully pruned the dried leaves, her fingers moving with gentle precision. "What are you doing?" he asked, his deep voice breaking the silence. Emma looked up, her eyes warm. "I think they can bloom again. They just need a little care." Ethan said nothing, his gaze falling on the once thriving flowers. Something in his chest stirred. Something distant. Something he wasn't sure he was ready to face. "Clara used to take care of them," he admitted. "After she passed, I never touched them again." Emma didn't respond immediately. she simply smiled softly and continued her work. "You know," she said after a while, "sometimes what we think is lost is only waiting for a chance to bloom again." Ethan had no reply, but when he walked back into the house that night, he realized he had stood there longer than he had intended. The next day, during ballet practice, Lily suddenly looked up and asked, "Daddy, will you dance with me?" The room fell silent. Ethan wasn't sure how to respond. He had never imagined stepping into this world with her, but when he glanced at Emma, she simply nodded, smiling as if to say, "You can do this." And for Lily, he tried. One slow step, a tiny hand reaching for his. For the first time in 2 years, Ethan wasn't just a spectator anymore. In the days that followed, Lily grew happier. She didn't just practice ballet with Emma, she also started talking more to her father. She told Ethan about the steps Emma taught her, about the little stories of her day, about the roses in the garden that were slowly coming back to life. Ethan realized that Emma wasn't just changing Lily, she was changing him too. One afternoon, he found himself sitting next to Emma in the living room, sharing tea after Lily's lesson. She told him about her years as a dancer, about the feeling of standing on stage, about why she chose to leave behind the bright lights to find a quieter life. "Do you ever regret it?" Ethan asked, his voice filled with genuine curiosity. Emma smiled, gently turning the cup in her hands. "No, because I've found beauty in different moments." Their eyes met, and for a moment, Ethan felt warmth spread through him in a way he hadn't expected. One afternoon, while Lily was practicing simple movements, Emma stood beside Ethan on the balcony, gazing down at the winter garden. "The roses are really coming back to life," Emma murmured. Ethan followed her gaze. He had never noticed before, but she was right. Small buds had begun to appear, little by little. "It's because of you," he said, his voice soft. Emma laughed lightly, shaking her head. "No, it's because you gave them a chance." Ethan wasn't sure why, but as he heard those words, he felt something inside him shifting, just like the roses. As the days passed, Emma's presence at Harrington Manor became more than just that of a ballet teacher. She had become part of their lives. Ethan found himself looking forward to the afternoons in the studio, where he saw his daughter growing brighter and more confident each day. But more than that, he found himself waiting for the little moments with Emma, the casual conversations in the garden, the quiet tea sessions after lessons, and the way their gazes lingered just a little longer each time. One late evening, as Ethan was reviewing documents in his study, a soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. "You're still working?" Emma stood in the doorway, her soft brown hair falling lightly around her face under the warm hallway light. Ethan smiled slightly, setting down his pen. Hard habit to break. Emma stepped inside, glancing at the stack of papers on his desk. "Do you ever take time for yourself?" Ethan leaned back in his chair, thinking for a moment before shaking his head. "Work used to be everything for me, but lately..." He hesitated, his eyes softening as they met hers. "I'm starting to realize there are more important things." Emma felt her heart slow for a moment, then race as his gaze lingered on her. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was something else, something unspoken, yet understood. Ethan slowly stood up, closing the distance between them. "I once thought I wouldn't be able to open my heart again," he admitted softly. "But then you came along, and I realized I might have been wrong." Emma smiled, a soft, knowing smile. "Sometimes, what we need isn't to forget the past, but to find someone willing to walk forward with us." And in that moment, Ethan knew he didn't want to lose her. Perhaps Emma felt the same way too. Love came softly, like the way roses bloomed in the winter garden. Ethan didn't know when it started, only that Emma had become an irreplaceable part of his life. Day by day, he found himself noticing the little things, the way Emma tucked her hair behind her ear while explaining something to Lily, the way she laughed at the girl's enthusiasm, the way she quietly tended to the roses he had once believed would never bloom again. And then he realized he was waiting for those moments. One late afternoon, after Lily had gone to bed, Ethan stepped into the winter garden. watching as Emma gently watered the freshly planted flowers. "You always take time for them," he murmured. Emma turned, her eyes soft. "Because I believe they can be beautiful again." Ethan stood still for a moment before offering a small smile. "I think it's not just the flowers that need that." Emma stilled at his words, but then she understood. Their feelings had not come in a rush. They had grown in quiet moments, in peaceful tea sessions, in conversations about the past, in the way their eyes met and lingered just a little longer each time. One night, as Ethan worked late, Emma appeared with a cup of tea. "Do you need a break?" she asked gently. Ethan looked up, holding her gaze for a long moment. "Only if you stay." Emma didn't leave. And for the first time in years, Ethan realized he wasn't alone anymore. A year later, Harrington Manor was no longer the same. The once silent hallways were now filled with Lily's laughter, and the winter garden had come back to life, blooming with vibrant roses under the golden sunlight. Today was a special day, Lily's first ballet performance. Backstage, Emma gently adjusted the small tiara on Lily's hair, her eyes filled with pride. "Nervous?" Emma asked, giving Lily's hand a reassuring squeeze. Lily smiled, her eyes shimmering with excitement. "A little, but I think I'm ready." Emma bent down and placed a soft kiss on her forehead. "I know you'll do wonderfully." In the audience, Ethan sat quietly, his gaze fixed on the stage. When Emma took her seat beside him, he turned to her, a warm smile touching his lips. The stage lights glowed. Lily stepped forward, taking her position. As the music filled the air, she began to dance, a graceful, effortless spin, light and full of confidence. Ethan gently squeezed Emma's hand, as if to say that in this moment, they had done it. They had helped Lily find her joy again. When the performance ended, the theater erupted in applause. Lily took a deep bow, and as she lifted her head, her eyes immediately searched for Emma and Ethan. Emma smiled, placing a hand over her heart, silently telling Lily how proud she was. And Ethan, his eyes filled with pride, knew that his family was finally whole again. 3 weeks after Lily's ballet performance, Ethan realized one thing. He didn't want to wait any longer. He loved Emma, loved the way she brought light into his and Lily's life, loved the way she was patient, kind, and endlessly understanding, loved the way she had helped him find himself again. And most of all, he knew she was the family he wanted to keep forever. Lily was the first to notice. One afternoon, as they tended to the winter garden together, she looked up at her father and asked, "Daddy, you love Miss Emma, don't you?" Ethan chuckled at her bluntness. "Yes, sweetheart, I do." Lily grinned. "Then why haven't you asked her to marry you?" Ethan hesitated for a moment, then smiled. "Maybe I was waiting for the perfect moment." "We can make one," Lily beamed. "A dinner in the winter garden with twinkling lights and roses. She would love it." And so they made a plan. On a crisp spring evening, Emma arrived at Harrington Manor expecting a simple family dinner. But when she stepped into the winter garden, her breath caught. The space was transformed with soft golden lights, a beautifully set table, and fresh white roses blooming all around. At the center of it all, Ethan stood waiting, with Lily by his side, smiling mischievously. Emma laughed, her heart swelling. "What is all this?" Lily winked. "Daddy has something to ask you." Ethan stepped forward, suddenly aware of how fast his heart was beating. He had rehearsed this moment in his head countless times, but now that he was here, with Emma standing in front of him, all his carefully planned words seemed to disappear. He took a deep breath, meeting her eyes. "Emma," he began, his voice softer than he intended, "you have given me and Lily more than I ever imagined. You are not just her teacher. You are the person who made me believe in happiness again." He hesitated for a fraction of a second, then slowly knelt down, revealing a small velvet box. "Will you marry me?" Emma's breath hitched. For a moment, she could only stare at him, as if unsure whether this was real. Then, with a soft laugh and teary eyes, she whispered, "Yes." 3 months later, in the very garden where it all began, Emma Carter became Emma Harrington, and their family was finally complete. Epilogue, a new chapter. Harrington Manor had never felt more alive. Sunlight streamed through the windows, casting a warm glow across the living room where Lily paced excitedly. She had been waiting for this moment for so long. Today, Emma and Ethan were coming home, with a new addition to their family. When the front door finally opened, Lily rushed forward, her eyes sparkling with joy. "Mom! Dad!" she called out, but her gaze quickly shifted to the small bundle cradled in Emma's arms. She took slow, careful steps forward, as if afraid to disturb the tiny angel sleeping peacefully. "Sweetheart, meet Rosie," Ethan said softly, his voice filled with warmth. Emma knelt down so Lily could see her little sister up close. Rosie Harrington, only a few days old, was sleeping soundly, her rosy cheeks and delicate eyelashes making her look like a dream. Lily hesitated, suddenly feeling nervous. What if she wasn't a good sister? What if Rosie didn't like her? Slowly, she reached out a small finger to touch Rosie's tiny hand. To her surprise, Rosie stirred, her tiny fingers instinctively wrapping around her big sister's finger. Lily gasped, her heart swelling with something new, something warm, deep, and wonderful. It wasn't just excitement. It was love. A soft giggle escaped her lips, and as she looked up at her parents, she whispered, "She likes me." "Can I hold her?" she asked, looking up with hopeful eyes. Ethan nodded, carefully placing Rosie into Lily's arms. The little girl gazed down at her sister, feeling a deep warmth spreading through her chest. Emma gently brushed a strand of Lily's hair back. "You're going to be a wonderful big sister." Lily beamed, her eyes never leaving Rosie. "You taught me how to dance, Mom," she whispered. "Now I'll teach my little sister." Ethan and Emma exchanged a glance, their hearts full at the sight of their daughters together. Outside, the winter garden was in full bloom, the roses swaying gently under the golden sunlight, and inside, their family had never felt more complete.